I'm going to finish this long unit where we began in India, but now we've come all the way to the 16th century CE. The Mughal dynasty was founded by a prince named Babur, who was descended both from Genghis Khan and from the rulers of the Timurid dynasty. After a falling out with his relatives in Central Asia, he decided to head south to seek his fortune. By his death in 1530, he had conquered northern India and established an Islamic empire. His grandson Akbar conquered even more of India and was widely renowned as a fair and efficient ruler who extended protection of religious liberty to his largely Hindu subjects. Jahangir, whom we'll meet in just a minute, was Akbar's son, and Jahangir's son, Akbar's grandson, Shah Jahan, built the Taj Mahal as a mausoleum for his wife and later for himself. So now we come to the last illustrated manuscript miniature in this unit, a Mughal work that dates from 1620. In Europe, this is the period of the late Renaissance and early Baroque, and the Mughal rulers were well aware of this world outside India. The British king had even sent an ambassador to the Mughal court. I'm pretty sure that's why this work, splendid as it is in its own right, ended up on the College Board list. This is all about cross-cultural influence. So the ostensible message of the work is that this Mughal emperor would rather hang out with a holy man than hang out with kings, that religion is more important to him than power. But what in this painting might suggest that this is not really the whole story? There's that halo around the Sultan's head. Notice it's not around the sheikhs. And it's Jahangir's hand that is bejeweled, not the sheikhs. The hourglass and the inscription both suggest the time runs out even for rulers, but of course Jahangir is sitting on top of that hourglass. The work also exhibits clear hierarchy of scale. The sheikh, it's true, is bigger than the other kings, but Jahangir is bigger than the sheikh. The sheikh also receives the gift in his shawl, not his hand. He observes royal protocol by refusing to touch the royal personage. On the left, we see two kings that seem to have a lower rank than the sheikh. So who are they? Well, now I've added the names of the cast of characters. The fellow on top is an Ottoman sultan. Mughals and Ottomans were vying for dominance of the Islamic world at this time, and this painting sends a pretty clear signal that the Mughals saw themselves as on top. Notice how deferentially the Ottoman ruler is shown approaching the king. What's different about the way the European king is portrayed? And by the way, this is probably based on a portrait of James I that was a gift to Jahangir. Well, in this case, the king is looking right at us. However, art historians think that this is really due more to Bickerter's careful copying of the European painting than it is to any kind of statement about the superiority of European rulers. Notice that James is not quite touching his sword. In a real painting, he'd be grasping it as a symbol of his power. He's not going to do that in the presence of Jahangir. What do Bickerter's clothes, and especially his headdress, tell us about this artist? He is a Hindu, working in a Muslim court. The early Mughal Empire in this regard was rather like the Caliphate of Cordoba, open to talents across religious lines. The brilliant, highly saturated colors, the meticulous detail, the hierarchical scale, the symbolism, all of these identify this as a Mughal work. By the way, you'll notice there's a lot of similarity to the Persian works that we just looked at. But note that the miniature painting also has some European elements, in addition to the obvious copy portrait of an English king. The carpet, with its figures of what look like Greek gods or nymphs, is Renaissance European in style, and so are those little angels, which are called putti. Stay tuned for Baroque art, which is contemporary with this work and is littered with putti. The round gold halo also is not typical of Islamic art, although Buddhist art sometimes had oval halos called mandorlas placed around holy figures. But note, it's the king, not the saint, who gets this halo. What about perspective? Which is, of course, very characteristic of Renaissance work in this period. We've talked about that a little already. We'll talk about it a lot more. So we see some in the foreshortening of Jahangir's legs, maybe in the way the hourglass comes toward us. But the general impression of the picture space is flat, and the hierarchical scale, of course, defeats perspective. Drum rolls, last work in the unit. So let's watch two video clips about the Taj Mahal. The first, from the History Channel, focuses on how the building was constructed, really on how it was engineered. The second, from our Islamic art and architecture video that we've watched quite a bit of, focuses on the Taj Mahal's beauty, but you'll note that our narrator takes issue with some of the History Channel's interpretation. So, what makes this building so breathtakingly beautiful? It has an extraordinarily graceful symmetry. The huge central iwan is framed with what's called a pishtak, or vaulted archway with two similarly shaped arched balconies stacked on either side. This motif of stacked pishtaks is replicated on the chamfered, sorry about all these terms, but you might need to know them. That means angled corner areas. So this makes the design completely symmetrical on all sides of the building. 4 minarets frame the tomb, one at each corner of the plinth. That's the platform that it stands on, facing again those chamfered corners. Don't be fooled though, this is a mausoleum, not a mosque. The onion-shaped dome echoes Timurid architecture and will be very prevalent in Russian architecture as well, by the way. Again, it's matched by smaller domes on each corner. The white marble and precious stones gleam in the sun, which helps create the Taj Mahal's famous sparkling jewel-like appearance. The gardens and the water leading up to the building frame it perfectly, enhancing this vision of paradise that the architect seems to have been attempting to create. So here's more of an engineering or architectural drawing. Again, the dome is actually double-shelled to help the building support its weight. We'll see that when we get to the Florence Cathedral. The interior dome is actually, the Florence Cathedral was already built at this time. The interior dome is smaller to keep it in proportion to the inner chamber. The finial, that's that funny looking thing on top, is actually an open lotus flower. What makes that interesting is it's a symbol widely used in Hinduism and Buddhism. The lotus is a flower that blooms in stagnant waters, and it's used in both religions as a symbol of the triumph of beauty and life over ugliness and death. So here we see some of the carved and inlaid exterior. And again, the height of Islamic craftsmanship with superbly rendered calligraphy, marble carving, tile patterns. And then we move inside to the cenotaphs. I had to look up how to pronounce that, or raised tombs. The design of the interior is based around 8 halls, and that actually reflects Islamic teaching that there are 8 levels of paradise. Here we see some of the interior decoration. We see more of that exquisite inlay work employing precious stones, such as that green malachite. I love the way it's angled in different ways to take advantage of the striped pattern. Huh? What is happening here? I thought we were in India. What's happening is that while I was watching the end of this video, I discovered that just before the discussion of the Taj Mahal, there's a really good second segment on the mosque at Janneh. I'd seen one earlier on and assumed that was it. Well, I doubt you have time to watch this in class, but it's up on Moodle, and here's where you can find this assignment. You've got the numbers. You may well be out of time by now. If you're not, let's close this unit with the summary segment of our Islamic art and architecture video and one last glimpse of Islamic art.